Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabriel, coming at you straight from Queens, New York, and today we are going to be continuing talking about the Chauvin trial. This is my second video on the subject, and this video is, I'm going to preface this video by saying that I actually do not care what happens to Chauvin. I know he was found guilty on no charges. I couldn't give a damn. Doesn't bother me at all. He could die tomorrow and I wouldn't shed a tear. What I cared about in this trial was the process and the precedent being set. The precedence. You know what I mean. So was the trial fair? Was the Chauvin trial a fair trial? And most people who are looking at it objectively, people that don't care what the result is, that either way, the courts found him guilty, then he is guilty. The jurors probably had a lot more access, a lot more detail than what we are in the public are privy to. So if they found him guilty, I'm going to lean with trusting that. However, we must also take into consideration the unprecedented number of outside influences. In this case, we literally had Christine Waters from California go to Minnesota and say that if not found guilty, they were going to riot. We had Joe Biden say that if not found guilty, that he should be found guilty. We had countless of BLM and Antifa rioters on the streets of Minnesota over the last couple weeks or days, already currently in the process of burning buildings, burning cars, burning property that isn't theirs, looting, shooting, murdering, stealing, killing, all of the degenerate things that degenerate people like to do. And on top of that, we had a jury that was not sequestered, meaning that they were not protected from all of the threats. They weren't protected from all of the claims, from all of the media coverage, all the biased media coverage, because all media is biased, and they were not protected from any media. They were allowed to just be influenced in any type of way that they could be influenced in. There was literally no restraint, and as we know, this country by far and large supports George Floyd and hates Derek Chauvin. So of course they were taking all into consideration, of course they were going to find him guilty. I don't really care. The problem is that, and even the judge admitted this, that the defense has grounds for appeal because of all of these things that all these other people, all of the CNNs, all of the Bidens, all of the Waters, all of these BLMs, everything that all these people were doing were giving Chauvin, ironically enough, a way out. You see, because all of this noise that they were creating, all of this news coverage, all of the threats, all of the promises, the promise of riots, this was all influencing the jury, which is chances are that the defense is going to go for an appeal. It makes sense to do so, especially seeing as how the judge has already said that you should probably go for an appeal. So that's one thing, right? That's one side. The other side is what the president is. Okay, so the president's that the trial sets, it sets a new lower standard for what he was found guilty on, which I believe was second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter or something like that. It was 3 charges total, and basically, since he was found guilty, right? Let's say it sticks. He is found guilty of this. What does this mean now? Well, this means that any police that does what Chauvin did, right? What Chauvin did is now considered illegal. So restraining somebody that is resisting, restraining in a ground position, putting somebody on their chest is illegal. putting somebody in handcuffs is illegal. Abiding by a request by the person that's being detained, because Floyd asked the cops to put him on the floor, this is now illegal. Like everything that happened there, if a cop does it, if a cop follows any of the actions that Chauvin followed, and the suspect ends up passing away during that process, the cop is now at fault and will be found guilty for doing any of that. It doesn't, and it doesn't matter what circumstances, like the nuance doesn't matter, right? Because the precedent has already been set. If you do this, if you do anything, if you do any one of the things that Chauvin did that day as a police officer, and the suspect that you're dealing with passes away, that's on you, right? It doesn't matter if they were ODing on drugs. It doesn't matter if they had a heart condition. It doesn't matter if they were suffering from a panic attack. It doesn't matter if they were suffering from an asthma attack. It doesn't matter if they had lethal doses of multiple types of drugs in their systems. It doesn't matter if they just recovered from an overdose not too long ago. It doesn't matter. None of those details matter anymore. The only thing that matters is if you're a cop and you do anything that Chauvin did that day, and the person that you're dealing with passes away, it's your fault, right? So then what is the repercussion to this? Well, from my point of view, I can only see one logical answer, and that is that cops should just stop policing these areas. These areas where they get these calls about a black suspect, about a Spanish suspect, about any minority suspect doing any type of interactions, drugs or fake money or guns, anything of that sort. They should be like, the only logical solution is to say, we're sorry, we can no longer send police out to that area. What we can do is that we can send EMS to clean up the mess afterwards, right? There is no way that a cop would feel comfortable doing their job knowing that if the suspect they're dealing happens to pass away for any reason, because the cop was the one detaining them at that time, they are not held responsible for that person's death. I feel like that's an unfair standard, but seeing as how the Chauvin trial has set this to be the standard, we have to accept that as the standard, right? And I would not ask any police officer to police these areas anymore. I would actually advise them. I would actually tell cops to do not answer these calls, or if you have to answer the call, wait until the confrontation, whatever is happening, wait until whoever's going to be a victim and whoever's going to be the criminal, wait until they are the victim and they are the criminal. Don't preemptively try to stop any acts of any kind, right? You can only do so afterwards, and you can only use force if the suspect is actively aggressing against you personally. If a suspect is to be trying to attack somebody else, we cannot expect cops to try to stop that. If we're going to blame the cops, if they happen to have to use force that could be considered deadly, because it's subjective, right? If any type of force can be considered deadly, they have to operate with the assumption that any force they use will be considered deadly. So we cannot expect them to nonchalantly use potentially deadly force, right? Because that's what Chauvin did. That is what Chauvin did. Okay, even though the courts proved that he used lesser force than what he would have been okay to use as per police protocol, right? He was okay in that situation. He was okay to use a taser, but he chose to use a ground maneuver instead, right? That's a lesser form of force. A taser is a higher, is the next escalation after physically restraining somebody. But that is still considered a lethal use of force. So we have to We have to come to the realization that now that this is the standard as set by a court of law, no cop should be expected to do that. No cop should be expected to put their freedom on the line just to stop a criminal from doing whatever they are doing. If there's always going to be a danger of the cop going to jail if and when the criminal passes away. It's an unfair expectation. It's a job that nobody in their right mind should be trying to become a cop right now. Anybody that's trying to be a cop, I would suggest that you just quit right now and go get a 9-to-5 somewhere else. The job is not worth having. You are not being protected by the state. You are not being protected by the people you are saying that you want to protect. All right, because if you look at the trial, what was the trial? The trial was the state versus Chauvin. It wasn't the people versus Chauvin. It was the state versus Chauvin. The system, the powers that be, right? This supposedly systemic, patriarchal system, racist system, homophobic system, the system versus Chauvin. The system sent Chauvin to jail. Right? Cops have no support from anybody, right? And if you're somebody that me who actually respects the police and fire department and hospitals and the people that work there, if you actually respect these people, you should not be comfortable sending them into the lion's den. Right, sending them into these situations, into these neighborhoods where there is a high likelihood that the only way for them to resolve the issue is to use force, but then turn around and blame them for using force, even though the suspect gave them no choice in using that force. Right? We don't want to. The Chauvin trial proves that we don't want to take any type of individual responsibilities for our actions, right? We must always blame the police. We must always blame the state. We must always blame the system. So therefore, why would we expect them, the state, the system, the police, to put themselves on the line for us? That doesn't make any sense to do that. That's hypocritical to do that. You know, all you're doing is being a predator at that point, right? So what I would say is that if you're a cop, do not answer these calls. And if you are there, simply be a glorified witness. Put your body camera on and let whatever will play out, let it play out. All right. You can ask for ambulance if you think that somebody's going to get hurt. But you should not touch anybody on any of these 911 calls that anybody gets, asking for police, asking for help, because of guns or drugs or money laundering or whatever operation is going on, whatever illegal nonsense is going on. You should not be held to an expectation to use that you are somehow a peace enforcer. You know, the trial proves that you cannot do that. The trial proves that doing that is illegal now. So don't do it. And anybody expecting you to do it, anybody asking you to risk your freedom for their safety, simply say that's not fair. It's not. And I wouldn't expect anybody to abide by such an unfair rule like that. So that's all I'm going to say for that one, man. Thanks for listening. See you in the next one.